Hey Pussy new video. And on this one we'll talk about hypothermia because it's kind of the season. Actually, yes, it's already started. We're already in the minus 20, minus 30s. Ooh, but I love that. So I cannot say brew. I just say brew for the other people, the normal people. But yeah. So hypothermia. For a lot of people, sometimes they're always impressed that it can happen mostly in the fall than in the winter. And one of the reasons is that in the winter, people expect it. And so they go with more dress and more dressy and everything. And because they think, oh my God, it's minus 20 or it's minus 20, they stay inside. But actually, and I'll put the link on a cool video that they really show like the difference. It was on a YouTube channel for one of the TV show with his name is shot me, but and they show like how he how the person kind of loses his effect and how it becomes like even gross motor power. You lose it because you're so shaky. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So hypothermia in itself is almost like a continuum. You can have mild, moderate to severe, and usually they're associated. And I'll find a link and I'll put a list of, like, you know, the definitions and everything with the categories of the temperature. But I believe that in the field, the most important part of it is to recognize the symptoms more than having the thermometers. There is thermometers that you can have, but so there's different ways of taking temperatures. There's some that are very good, and some also that are not uncomfortable, and so we'll go through them a little bit and to show you a little bit. So the one that we're using now, it's called the tympanic one. It's basically you got like two arteries that kind of goes right over, like kind of goes over here, and it's a thermometer that you pass through your forehead and goes back to your ears, and it takes about 2 or 3 seconds that you do this, and it takes about, I think, 1,000 reading in those, and then it makes the average, and it's very accurate. And the advantage of it is that, let's say I got a hat or something, just taking it out, I take the temperature very quickly of what's the ambient, and they're very accurate. The advantage is it's not invasive. It's very easy, even with kids. But with kids less than 2 months old, they're not that accurate. And you have to have access to your forehead as well and stuff. So if they have blood or something, or a bandage, then you cannot really take it. But it's the most. That's the one we're using now in the hospital and everything. There's one that you can take in the ears, but the ears, that's what we used to try to use. And the problem is it's very user dependent. So depending of if you pull the ears the right way, or also what's in the ear. So if you have dirty ears and stuff, it can affect the reading of it. So those are called tympanic, and they're not that great. So you have the temporal one, you got the tympanic, and then you got oral. Oral as well. They're less invasive in a way. Well, they're pretty invasive, I mean, but they're easy to take. But the problem with it is, for example, if I take a coffee or if I drink a glass of water or something like this, the problem with it is that you can suddenly affect the temperature that you're going to show, and you have to put it at the right spot. In kids, well, in adults as well, but we usually use in kids, you can take the auxiliary one. So that means that you go right under the armpit there, and you put the thing in, and you can take a temperature. The more invasive one, rectally, so you can take your temperature over there. And as well as the problem with this one, though, because we have like special cables that we use to take temperature over there. Hopefully you're not eating, but anyway, if you have poops and there's stools there, and I put my cable right there, and your poops is cold, so what I'm putting is I'm putting my probe right into your poops, and so all I'm getting is that you have cold poops. It's not telling me anything on what's your temperature in your body. It's telling me what your poop is, how cold it is. And so that's why the rectal sometimes is not. And as well, especially like in smaller kids and stuff, you can do some trauma because they have such a small things that if you're pushing hard, or if the kids decide to move or something, you can literally go in and rupture. So you can cause some trauma with the temperature. There's a new one, and that's the one we use mostly in the helicopter when it's invasive, and it's not that actually not so bad. I used it on somebody that was actually talking and everything, and what we do is it's called esophageal. So basically we go through so in front of your in the back of your throat here, you got your trachea, which is where the air goes in, and where your food goes, your esophagus. And what you do is you bring down a probe that goes right over here. And what this probe does, so if you imagine that the heart is here, you got literally the best core temperature that you can have. But for this you need a special monitor and everything. So when you talk about hypothermia, and there's some kits that comes with those thermometers, but they have to be special thermometers, because usually you're starting to talk about hypothermia below 35 degrees Celsius, and I'll put the Fahrenheit below, but you're starting to talk about that. Well, it's hard to take, like with all those different temperatures, it's a lot of stuff to bring for your first aid kit, and if you want to decrease your first aid kit, well, why bring a thermometer? Just to tell me that its temperature is 34, 32. So the better approach, in my opinion, is to go with the symptoms. So at 35 degrees Celsius, is usually that's when we start shivering. And the reason that we shiver is for creating heat. And as well as from when we used to be big baboons with a lot of hair, our hair will raise up, and the reason there was this was to create, exactly like when we're creating multi-layers, was to create a layer of air where that you could warm it up and then create a kind of a jacket of air around us. And so that's why our air was sorry for the French, air was raising up to create a layer of air around her. H and A, we have trouble with that. To create a layer of air that we could warm up. And so around 35, that's where you shiver. So this is basically the big guideline. Until you shiver, at shivering you're in trouble. The problem then becomes after that when you stop shivering, because if you stop shivering, does that mean that you're above 35 or below 35? And so if you see the person kind of going downhill, then that's where the issue of you need to be even more aggressive in your treatment. If they seem to be improving, so they were shivering, you're giving them something to warm up and everything, and they improve, then you're better. So at shivering, you can start using some of the treatment that we're going to talk about in the next segment.